Hey kids, and welcome to Stylish Rumble Harmony Tutorial Ring Gun! Yay! Today I'm gonna try and tackle this shoulder issue. The thing is, there's no super great way to do shoulders where they can be totally automated and also really look great, because shoulders are just too complicated to make a paper doll magic shoulder. So I feel like when animators are willing to go in and draw things to get the shoulders looking nicely, it really adds a lot. And usually you can see the budget of the show in the shoulders. A lot of shows, that's kind of where, if you're watching carefully, you can see things break up. You can see the lines getting a little bit jacked up in there. Just because it's just so difficult to get it automated. Like, I really feel like you have to draw in there to get a super good result. So of course we have our super simple shoulders because there's a huge variety of styles going on. Some shows just do ultra simple stuff like this where it just ends. You just get, you have a simple body. You might have a sleeve or something and just it has a line going all the way around. They're usually the more stylized shows. Oh, so here we have, I looked up Scaredy Squirrel. Archer just happened to pop up as an ad, and the shoulders in Arthur are terrible. The show's definitely not about looking really sharp. It's about the story, and it's really good. I love the show. But you can see these shoulders getting totally jacked up as they go along. But Scaredy Squirrel is much, much simpler, so you can see the shoulders just end. This guy has a little sleeve down here under this ad. So you can see little simple sleeves. This guy's just end. It's not super high resolution, it's 360p. This guy just has a big circle, and it's fine. I mean, for the style of the show and the style of animation, it looks fantastic. His shoulder just goes right up by his ear. Who cares? Like, whatever. This works great for a lot of stuff. So if you've got a simple show, you've got a nice style going, go with this. Go with the simple shoulder. Redraw where you need to. Maybe just throw in some little deformer wiggly arms. Love that stuff. Jimmy Two Shoes, another one. You just got super simple arms. You got these nice thick lines. His shoulders in his neck. Like, this is not, I'm gonna just full screen this. This is not anatomically correct, but it doesn't matter, guys. It's a cartoon. It looks great. This guy's got little shoulders. This guy's arms just end. There's no shoulder here. But I find these shows look really tight because they're willing to redraw when they need to. Like, look at this hand. That is just good. Right there. The hand is just bleep, little thing. But when you're watching it, you don't care. You've got your little shoulder up here. Nice tapered line. Really tight show. So even though they've got a super simple style, they're really tight on these shoulders, and it looks good. This is definitely a style you can go for. All you need is a pivot point. There's nothing to it. Simple. Love it. Completely different style of show. So this is Motor City. It looks really cool. They've got this girl's shoulders. Just watch her down here. So she pulls her shoulders up. Shoulders are going into points. Yeah, and the shoulder's going down again. So this is a really tricky show to animate on, I gotta say, because it's got so much detail. She's got this vest happening. Vests make everything harder with shoulders, but they've got a nice line around here. This line might go a little high, but for the style of the show, that seems to be the standard look, and then it cleans up again. So this is another show. It's not the tightest animation in the world, but it looks so cool. Yeah, look at these shoulders going. Oh my god, it's so much work. So that's a really good show to check out, how they approach a more difficult look, because it's very busy. I'm not sure the exact ratio of drawing to rigging is on that show, but it's definitely a tricky one. It's really hard to find some high def Toot and Puddle, because this is all just like ripped off of the television. But Mercury does some of the best rigged animation in the business right now. So if you keep an eye on this shoulder here, boop, you can see they've got a cutter happening here, and they're just taking a lot of care in making sure that it looks nice on all the frames. This show's great for animation, and this is the Toonboom show, and it's top tier rigged stuff. Alright, so I could stay on the internet all day looking at cartoons, but when you're watching your favorite shows, watch the shoulders specifically and see how they're treated, because oftentimes it's simpler than you think, because the majority of people who watch cartoons don't draw or animate at all, and you can pull a fast one on them in a lot of cases. But the important thing about shoulders, they gotta move it all. So these shoulders here, if you're just getting a little shrug, you're gonna get a lot more out of a shrug if you pull the shoulders up than if you just have a flat, like, I don't know. But as soon as you pull those shoulders up, it feels a lot more shruggy. Also, this stuff, when you pull the arm in front of the body, a lot of times you get a line around it like this. So if your character looks like this and there's no line around the shoulder at all, and then all of a sudden one appears here, I just think that's the ugliest thing. Like, get drawing substitution, man. Just pull a sub in there. And then sometimes one shoulder needs to be up and one shoulder needs to be down. So when people are rigging their own stuff, or they haven't really gotten into animating in bigger shows, some of the newer guys, they don't break the shoulders up. They just leave it as part of the body, or they'll just make it part of the arm and something like that. But if you're doing anything detailed, I definitely recommend it. And even on something simple like this, it'll help to have this shoulder be able to move independently for certain views, like if he needs to shrug, rather than having this as a part of his torso or as part of his arm. Because if he turns his arm right now, like this, so if we turn his arm, his shoulder's jacked up. And if it's part of the chest, then if we pull our arm up like this, then we have to somehow either drawing sub this whole body or come up with a solution to fix that. So here I've just overlaid this on top of that. You could pull it forward, and then we're going to have to adjust this. So if we have this on a separate thing, we could even bring the shoulder up that way rather than bring it up the way you'd think it would, and then you can clean up this line and get a nice pose out of it. But in some cases, if he needs to raise his arm all the way up like this and they want this like sweeping curve to follow through the whole body, you have to draw that. I really think the best shows are the ones where the animators are encouraged to draw when they need a pose. So obviously you've got these super simple arms that just end. All you need there is a pivot point. Like there's no super fancy way to do it. Here as well, just putting a pivot point in there, you're gonna be, here you go. You get your shoulder done. Easy peasy. So I'm going to do a little bit more of a complex shoulder because otherwise it's not really teaching you anything. So here we've got a little cartoon guy. He's not the fanciest guy in the world, but I'm just going to work on getting these shoulders working. And here we've got a little bit of a scoop collar thing. We want to be able to adjust that as things move around. So if we bend him over like this, so his neck is there, and his head is here, we want to be able to adjust this collar and get this pose. Oh my god, things are happening. So I've already started breaking things up. Here, I've got the body as just a bubble, and I'm not being very true to the art size-wise. It's okay. This is more about technique than quality. And what I've done is I've taken each of the shoulder lines, so these lines here, and I've given them their own layer. And I've also put in, let me just pull it out, a little bit of green, some of the shirt color. We may need to adjust the actual shape of this depending on how our character animates, but that's going to fill in the gaps back here. And now these shoulders are above the chest. So it's above the chest, but then I have this on a separate layer. Let me just show you the torso real quick. There we go. It's easier to see here. So on the overlay, I have the line and the color of the neck hole of the shirt. The line of the chest, I have the outline, and then the color, I have just the fill. I put the overlay, this part, on its own layer, and then used an auto patch so that the chest is cutting it using an inverted cutter. So hopefully all that should make sense from our former videos. And now we can take our collar and we can put it anywhere on the chest. So if this guy were to bend over or do any sort of thing, we could adjust this to make sure it's in the right location. Now the chest itself, of course you could always do drawing substitutions for anything you need drawn, but of course deformers are getting to be the standard on everything now. So there are two different ways that you could go about it. One is you could just put a simple line deformer in like this, and now your chest can bend over like that. So you can muck around with this and see how much utility you can actually just get out of that. It cleans up okay. And then the overlay of this could be pulled down like that. So now he's pulled forward. It's got a little bit of a belly. So the downside to this, of course, is you can't get a lot of detailed shaping with if you bent him right over like this. So you might not be entirely happy with that. Personally, if I need a crazy view like that, I just find it looks a lot nicer to just do a drawing substitution. Another way is to make sure that your envelope mode is on and go all the way around. So if you do an envelope deformer like this, you're going to have the ability to do more detailing in the shoulders and stuff, making sure that things look more the way you want them to. But of course, it is really heavy. I'm closing the contour on my envelope deformer. Of course, these big deformers are very heavy, and it's really a matter of how useful it is versus how heavy it is, I think. So having something like this on a rig that 99% of the time is just standing straight up, I feel like it's a waste of computer resources. Whereas that one deformer is a little bit less so if you have to have them done beforehand. But in La La Land, I think it's best when animators add deformers as they're necessary. So if you are working on a personal project and you know you're going to be doing a lot of bending like this, you could certainly go in and add your envelope deformer. And this one doesn't get an overlap either. So we could do an overlay for this, or we could just create an extra drawing where we can actually paint in little details if we want to. That's something that's available, but I just want to show you quickly how the torso is working, because you don't need a whole episode for this. But you do need to get it working to get shoulders started. So yeah, you can get some stuff out of that. So either one of those deformer choices are fine. Next thing, we're going to put our shoulders in. So like I said, I just popped each one of these on its very own line. It's ahead of the chest. Because if you put it behind the chest, which you might be thinking you want to do, then of course you have this part here. And if your chest includes this part of the shirt, depending on how you're actually breaking this up, then it would cut over this. So you might end up with something that looks like this if this part is part of your shirt. So I think it's better to put these guys in front. And then this part, the actual overlay, would go ahead. So here the cutter, it's including the auto patch, that's ahead of the two shoulder pieces. Now the shoulders themselves, I like to put the pivot point right in here because that just feels right to me. So you can bring your shoulders up. Boop, boop. And of course, you can throw deformers on here too. Why not? Put deformers on everything, animators. I don't care. So now you can do more of a roundy shrug. And of course, you can add as many points as you need to get whatever shape you need. That's certainly an option. And then you have the choice of how you want your arm to follow. So I've thrown the arms in there like that. So currently they've extended a little bit higher than the shoulders. Depending on the shape of your shoulders, that will determine how you can get this shoulder working exactly. So in this case, we might get something like this. And we want to make sure that this part of the line, if we rotate it, cleans up nicely. That's like that's my main goal at this point. So I'm going to make my circle. And I'm going to put the widest part of the circle here so that it rotates around that area nicely. And then on this view, it's no big deal to pull this up like that. So this is just like the nub patch system that we did in Arms 1. This is my go-to for most things because it's simple, it's very clear where your pivot point is, so we can just hook that up right there. And now when we rotate this around this way, you can see that our line is lined up pretty well. Now if we go farther than the shoulder line itself, because those are quite sloped shoulders, there's not a super easy way to get it to rotate both ways and work really well. Really, it's just going to take a little bit of tweaking. If the shoulders are a bit rounder, so if the character's shoulders look a bit more like this, so less of a point. Yeah, so if your shoulders look a little bit more like this, they're rounded, then this is going to be a little bit easier because it's just going to line up with that like that. And then one thing that a lot of people who don't really pay attention to anatomy don't think about is when your shoulder actually goes past a certain point, your arm, once it goes out straight, it's going to bring the shoulder with it as it goes up. Okay? So if the animator was to pull it up more, they would actually need to bring the shoulder up more, just anatomically speaking. So you could get as far as there before your shoulder would engage and pull the whole thing up. If you do have a really sloped shoulder like this, and this arm's a lot wider, so there's going to be more tweaking with the shoulder to get it working nicely. And then you could add a green screen cutter here. So throw that in the overlay. And then toss in some layer selectors. Doopy-doo. We're going to cut the arm with this overlay. And we're going to view a no overlay. So you want to show everything but the overlay. So now your arm turns and you're going to get it hacked off like that, but then you can adjust with the shoulder. And this color, this is where I was saying that you might need to adjust your color. Before that comes down. That looks a little nicer. The actual collar of the shirt, I think would benefit by having some of the shoulder color. Here we've got the auto patch of the torso that's displaying this, but we're also, when we move this shoulder up, if this guy gets affected by that at all, we're going to want this color to be helping out. So color, grab each shoulder. We want both the colors from both of those, like that. Now we check it. So this is looking a little bit jacked up. So instead of color, I think I'm going to need an auto patch so that we make sure that our line is not involved. So let's try that. Yeah, that works. And we could actually, instead of having 2 auto patches, we could have both the shoulders plugged into one comp. C for shoulder comp. And then have 1 auto patch for both of those shoulders. If we want to cut down on our modules. But now if our guy is flipping around, going everywhere, and then he's going to get displayed. This is kind of the simplest way that I've come up with to do it. There are going to be issues with Z-axis stuff because the Z-axis makes everything more difficult. There, 1 forward. So now this is where we're getting these ugly shoulders like I was mentioning. So in this case, if we wanted to clean up this area, we could use our shoulder for that. Throw in a little envelope deformer real quick, and we can get a nice shoulder shape over here. This guy we can manipulate, so we go like this, and you can put this on a separate layer if these big bounding boxes actually bother you. So it's separate from the chest. That's not really a big deal. You'd have a head right here. Hello. So we had one of those in our drone. So this is, you know, this is first day posing. Let's see what we can do. If we have our single former in here, and our chest, and I want my neck to move along, so I'm quickly going to grab a kinematic output and pop that neck on there. Now I pull my chest forward, and you can also use this kinematic output for the shoulders. The shoulders, I've added a master peg so that the arm follows the shoulder. I wanted the shoulder to have its own pivot point, and I wanted the arm to have its own pivot point, but I gave them one to share as well. And now this kinematic output can be connected to each of those shoulder masters. So here when I move my chest around, everything's going to move along with it. Let me reset everything when I... So, I mean, I have 2 different shoulders, but that's cool. We're just going to pretend that that's what we wanted. He's got one beefy arm. So if we move now our just single peg guy around, this is why I like the single line instead of the multi-group line, because now all our shoulders and stuff are moving along with it. So here we get our bend over. You start at the top. So the very biggest thing right now is this chest peg. We don't need to move his actual body over like this, and we're going to assume he's in the right place in the scene. So top peg is going to be this chest node. Next thing, I want this arm to be in front. 1 forward. And now he does have a shoulder master peg that's controlling it, but I don't feel like I need to move it down or up. That feels pretty good. This shoulder is tucked in a little bit more than we have it here. So I'm going to bring that in, and I'm going to just skew my shoulder into place because it doesn't, I don't feel like I need a whole deformer handling this little thing. So now our arm's in like that. Now I didn't break the sleeve up just because I was just mucking around with the shoulders, but if the sleeve was separate, then we could get this arm working a little bit better without actually having to do drawing substitutions, because this arm should be more that way, right? So this is give us a cheap version of that. If this was our storyboard pose, we could work with this, or we may actually want our chest to be a bit more that way. And if you had a show where you actually need this curve to go right along the arm, of course you could add in arm deformers. You could add in deformers to everything. A lot of shows will stop here and leave this line, and it could just be as simple as adding a drawing substitution, finding out where the line is, in this case it's on the line layer, and then just erasing some. Oop. Adding a little taper. There you go. Now your shoulders, it's not the best in the world. It's not as good as if it was hand-drawn. You can get a decent version of that out of your cutout. I really should have planned this better. But the one thing I want you to think about is making sure that your shoulders are separate if you're doing something cut out, so that you can manipulate these lines. You can't get these shrugged shoulders up like this. You can get something that cleans up better into, get you better line of action here, get your back and your arm working together. If you're working on a show that needs shoulders involved. If you want really nice shoulders, you have to draw. There's just no way around it. And I think drawing should be embraced again. Remember drawing, you guys? So that would be my shoulder advice. I don't know how clear this is. So going back and forth between these obviously is going to take a little bit more care on your in-betweens than this guy's doing. Alright, just keeping this in the front until it goes back. It's already starting to just clean that up a little bit. So obviously this is not going to be perfect, but it's certainly faster than having to redraw all these shoulders all the time. And then you can just go through on your in-betweens and make sure that your shoulder's working how you want it to, and switch back to your drawing substitution when appropriate. Yeah, so okay, it's not the worst. Alright, so for a quick hack job, I think that's alright for a shoulder. It does still work for the 3/4 arm. The place where this gets tricky is if you have a shirt with a vest. Yeah, so here, this part up here, you want to have below the vest. So you're going to have some sort of a vest cutter like that. But then when you pull it forward, like when that comes in front of the cutter, then you're going to want this arm to cover everything like this, right? So in this situation where you have the vest, it could be a matter of having a drawing substitution of the vest that has a green screen cutter overlay, or you could put the overlay on a separate layer and turn it on and off using image switch or something like that. And I didn't plan this very well, so I'm rambling. I find this stuff kind of tedious, so I don't know how many of you are asleep by the time we get to the end, or if you just like peace out early on. If you want me to get more into these detailed shoulders, or you have a specific type of character you're working on and you want me to address that specific type of shoulder, you can feel free to send me a message or leave a comment down below, and I'll be happy to go over more shoulders with you. It's one of those, shoulders are really tricky. I think the number one thing is, don't feel like you need to make a shoulder that is 100% automated. You might need to fiddle around with the shoulders a little bit, put in some drawing substitutions or deformers if you want your line art to be really crisp and specific. And don't be afraid to do that. I think that you're going to, if you're trying to make the perfect shoulder that works for every possible pose, I think you're just gonna punish yourself. You're gonna like feel really bad. But at the same time, I also think that people need to be super aware of shoulders, because that's where the quality falls down in shows, is when you get those extra lines. I don't like when a character's leaning in like this and then their arm does that. Like, I just want to go in and just clean that up. Like, why would you? Okay, that's, I'm a line snub. Okay, I'm gonna shut up. Hopefully that helps. I don't know if it did. I've had some really big deadlines lately, so I haven't had a ton of time to do any prep, so there you go. Leave questions if it's confusing you. So, thanks for stopping by. Share if you know anybody who wants to see this hot mess. Like, subscribe, and all those things that internet people ask you to do. Bye.